There are multiple packages that need to be delivered on the earth. And these packages have different sizes, different shapes, different weights. And for each of them, or for each batch of packages, there are well trained and specific delivery people assigned to it. These packages, clearly you must have understood, have nothing really physical to them initially. But these are first ideas. These are concepts, these are plans, these are agendas that would then take the form of different physical offerings that are packaged and that are assigned to somebody to be delivered. And you would agree with me that anyone who's assigning packages for delivery has a tracking number on it, expecting for those packages to be delivered at the right address, on time, and in the good state. State here meaning the form, the condition in which they are delivered. That's exactly how God sees our destinies. Each and every one of us is a carrier of ideas, projects, plans that God had envisioned way before the earth was created. And our introduction into this world of the living is the start of a mission where we have to deliver. But the peculiarity of this mission is that at the beginning, while we have been assigned these packages, we don't always really know what they look like unless we, one, encounter Jesus. But after we've encountered him and we've been realigned and our spiritual eyes are open to understand spiritual realities, there is much more work to do. There is much more work to do in terms of understanding how to label those packages, how to even first package the ideas, the projects into the labels that match the initial order that came from heaven. See, the work of labeling requires an intent understanding of the content of the package. So when we've come to Christ, there is work of rediscovery, because our Adamic nature, our human nature, has so much corrupted everything that God had put in us. But when we come back to Christ, those things become accessible again. And where we limit ourselves sometimes is when we do not put in the work to access those revelations, those things again. And when we begin to access it, or when we decide to do the work to access these, then we're starting to do the work of identifying the content of these packages that were assigned to us. And then we are now able to label these packages. And as we label the packages, then we're going to move into a season where we've identified the packages, we've labeled them, and now comes the time to go deliver. But in order to deliver, you also need to have an address. For this specific idea, for this specific project, who is the destination? Who is destined to receive these packages? Because if you don't know whom you're sent to, you might misdeliver packages you might delay the delivery of packages. And as you're delaying, as you're being rerouted by the GPS, maybe you took a wrong exit, you made a wrong decision, or God asked you to go a certain way, you decided to go another way. He would always be merciful and have you reroute and come back on track. But you're delaying the process of delivery. And in the next episode, we would probably talk about the destination, but here, that's not the focus. But as we then embark on delivering, if ever we've met challenges along the way, if ever we met difficulties along the way, we got to be able to answer the question, who sent you? Because every time you've labeled the boxes and you've set out on the path for delivery, life has its agents of control. Let's call them control agents. Life has its control agents that it's going to send your way to question the depth of what you think you believe, to question whether you've truly had access to those truths and you've truly believed them or not. And the very first thing that we have to understand is that as destiny carriers, as leaders called to impact and influence a generation, every time life's control agents who are not necessarily in favor of your delivery would want to stop you or would stop and question what you carry as a delivery guy or woman, you got to be able to answer one question. Who sent you? Before even talking about the content of the package, you got to be able to answer who sent you. Because you see, if I'm delivering a package that has been entrusted to me by someone who's unknown, a citizen of the country, a good person, but the person is unknown, then, if I get pulled over by the cops, maybe the cops can be like, you cannot deliver that package because I don't agree, because the cop has authority. But if I've been sent by the president on an executive order, a mandate to deliver, then when I get stopped and I'm asked who sent you, and I show the mandate that I've been sent by the president, unfortunately, although the cop has authority, he cannot stop the delivery. And that's why, dear leaders, it's important to understand who sent you. And when God sends us, practically speaking, He's always going to give us a word. When God sends us practically, He's going to give us an instruction. And we have to be aware and conscious of who sent us and how He sent us and the tools with which He sent us. When you look at the book of Luke 3 verse 2, it says, I'm reading a part of it. At this time, a message from God came to John, son of Zechariah, who was living in the wilderness. See, when the word of God came to John, only then did he begin his destiny, his ministry of delivering what he was destined for. Before he was born, there were words that had been revealed to his father and mother. Before he was born, even before he was in Elizabeth, his mother's womb, God had these packages labeled for him. But it was only when he himself came to consciousness with why he was there and who sent him, when he received the message from God. Then verse 3 of Luke 3 says, Then John went from place to place on both sides of the Jordan River, preaching that people should be baptized to show that they have turned from their sin and turned to God to be forgiven. You see, John had to know who was sending him for himself, beyond the plans that existed, beyond the boxes that were labeled, he had to know who sent him. And as we navigate through life in different areas of the marketplace, as athletes, professionals into finance and engineering, science, healthcare, real estate, teaching, research, whatever area you're in as a godly leader, you got to remember who sent you. With that being said, thank you, and we will see you in the next episode.